Myself and for example, in a broader context, what can sport bring to the conversation? And specifically, what can winter sport bring to the conversation to help inspire but support people to move towards a different perspective and a different understanding of personal values that is a practical understanding. So um, I know myself and Lauren have talked for many, many hours about values. What are our cultural values? Why are they there? What does that mean? What does it feel like to have values? And ultimately, what can we do with the knowledge and the understanding, the shared understanding of those values in terms of suggesting solutions and policies? So I'm going to hand over to Lauren so that she can explain a little bit more on the policies side, on where the discussions around values that are very rewarding and very, very interesting and fun, ultimately how they can become useful in terms of suggesting potential directions and solutions from the power perspective.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leslie. Like you say, we've kind of had these discussions for hours. That I think the importance of values is to connect. I think you need to embody the values um, uh, of our community, and I think that connection to each other, to those shared experiences in the mountains, moving in the mountains, trusting each other, calling on each other's knowledge, perceptions, is really an important mindset that we can take to challenge our policymakers and challenge those who are setting the rules. So I guess Protect Our Winter's theory of change is trying to use that connection, the connection to the outdoors, the connection to each other, to then give us all confidence in speaking up for change, and that we don't have to be, incredibly intelligent people like yourself, Heidi, you're a scientist or a policymaker to understand and and push for this. We can connect to each other, um, and so I guess that's what we use to invite people in to the conversation, to pull up a chair for them, and then we work on the policy that we think will have the biggest carbon reduction. So our current campaign at the minute is called Divest the Dirt, and it's on the understanding that as outdoor people, we know or we like to get dirty, but while we're doing this, our money, or specifically our pensions, are being invested in very dirty practices. So using the connection, I mean, that for me is quite interesting, because why are we mobilizing or how do we unpack something like pension pots to be relevant to the outdoor community, and really using that connection, language, values, to unpack that so that the issue becomes relevant, and when it becomes relevant and understood, then we can act on it. So um, yeah, I guess that's what we've been up to lately, and thanks for that question.
So just to make a little comment on the embedded experiential side of getting dirty, and the idea that there could be good dirty and bad dirty, and the different kinds of good that you can get within the action sports community, because we have such a rich language. And I'm going to use snowboarding because that's my first passion. I do a lot of work in coach development in the high performance system in the UK, and I went to work with some sailing coaches recently. And I thought, it's not going to be so different. Sailing is an environmental sport. There's lots of complexity in the environment that the athletes and the coaches are looking at, and they get a kind of flow. We use that idea of the flow state a lot. How do you support athletes, or how do you support coaches to support athletes to find their flow state and look is decision making and that cost benefits analysis as you go on. How do you support somebody to do that in the complex environment? So I'm trying to understand sailing. I've done a bit of sailing. I'm not an expert in any way. And I asked the coach I was working with, how do your athletes and yourself talk about when something's really good? You've had a good day, and that your moves, your skill is this kind of good. What language do you use? And I got a kind of blank look back, and they've said, good, had a good day. come on, give me more, give me more. What kind of good day? You know, like, do you talk about how it makes you feel? Do you talk about the technical aspect, the tactical aspect of what you're doing? What is it that you bring out in the different types of situation? Just give me an example. So I gave him an example from snowboarding, and um, if if a trick, so a maneuver off a jump, if if something has done really really well, a snowboarder will describe that in different ways. They might describe it as bolts, and bolts are the things that your bindings, your snowboard bindings, are screwed into the board with. And so if you land bolts, you're very stable, very secure, technically very proficient, clean, well done, but no flair, nothing special, no, in skill acquisition language, creative variations, no sparkle. Um, there's an athlete, very very high level snowboarder, won World Cups and Olympic medal, who would describe a trick as sparkly in some occasions. Now sparkly, very different from bolts. Both are very good, but it's a different kind of good, and there's an embeddedness, a feel for the value of the trick. And I think that's a really interesting angle because it brings in that idea of um, embeddedness of skill and understanding. It's really consciousness, I think. This is the cutting edge of phenomenology and experiential understanding, meaningfulness through interaction with the environment. And it's that makes us stoked. I'm going to stick with the snowboard language. So stoked means uh, it means really, really happy, but it's more than that. It's about achievement. It's about um, reaching a goal, a shared goal, something that has cultural capital as well as personal value. And to be stoked, there's no other better feeling. If you say to somebody who snowboards, I was stoked today with my day, they know what you mean. And I think that if we can get people stoked on doing something in this space, it's it's more valuable than anything else. It really is an embedded movement that we can capitalize on. Let's get everyone stoked.
Wow, that's going to be hard to follow up, but thank you so much, Leslie. That was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I must say I'm really impressed by the work that Protector Winter does. I've been involved in the efforts of Protector Winters Europe, and I think it is so crucial today to have this link between the science and really the foundation of Protector Winters is really to listen to the scientists, listen to the people who are seeing those changes out there in the field, and then to try to push for more action. And these actions are very clearly defined, right? And I always say that, especially when I work with the youth who have crippling anxiety about the climate, about what's currently taking place, that the best solution against this anxiety is climate action. And this is what POW is all about, right? It's always about providing simple solutions that we can all do at our levels. Of course, you're working with the outdoor enthusiasts, you're working with supporting grassroots initiatives, but you're also doing a lot of advocacy. And I have a question. I don't know if I can ask you your question, but my question to you is, what are you hoping to achieve at this COP? Because I know you're very present, and then this is why you two are here and pushing for more ambition. But do you have any specific goals you would like to achieve at this COP? Any strong messages you would like to share? Um, Anything we can support?
Yeah, 100%. We've been talking about this for a long time because we have been careful around, this is the last COP to save the world, or, like this sort of language, because um, we we just don't want to, we just don't want to pin everything that happens within these 12 days. We believe that using this moment of COP to welcome a diverse um, section of society, of civil society, into this conversation, specifically in the UK, is going to be probably our biggest win and our biggest success. And I wish I could come out with, like, we want to, mobilize for the 100 billion. We want to, see commitment on coal. Of course, we want to see all of those policy agreements come to light. But for us, the most important thing is using this moment, specifically in the UK, to take the UK civil society with us, and invite them in and give them the confidence that they are the ones to dream and to demand their own future, and to have and to push for that action. Um, and so for us, this is something that we've talked about as a team, highlighting the connection, the values, um, and using that to really get just invite people into the conversation, because we really believe that we say this all the time as a Protector of Winters team, that civic support equals parliamentary support. And if it's just scientists, or if it's just policymakers coming to ministers saying, "Hey, we want this change," it's kind of easier to ignore. But once faith groups start turning up, agricultural groups turning up, arts groups start turning up, snowboarders turning up, mountain bikers turning up, climbers turning up, it's then so much harder to ignore. And so for us, what we want to see out of this is for our community to use this moment to speak up, and push for that climate action, really, and do that in their own language, as Leslie said. Yeah, I would. I really want to ask you a question, Heidi, around working in this field can sometimes be quite depressing. And I asked Leslie a little bit about hope, but I guess what is the most useful messages that we can take to our community around, it's not all lost, like you said. If we can act now, we can see the changes in the snow. So yeah, I guess I want to ask you around, what is the most sort of powerful messages that we can take, decipher, turn into our own language, and take it to our community, I guess.
That's a great question, and I think, and I do think, I firmly believe that Protector Winters is an amazing platform to share these important messages, to really push for more action. And to me, the very first step, and we can definitely help with that. And believe me, in the room here, there are these people who are fighting really hard to make it happen. The first thing we can help with is education. And I'm convinced that if people were able to really understand the scale of what is happening, the speed at which things are happening, and the fact, most importantly, the fact that we can still act today, people would immediately focus on solutions. But this first step of education is key. And this is why we need athletes. This is why we need people who have a following, who have a big reach, who have a platform to share these important messages. And, as scientists, we often communicate our science in very simple ways. And, we publish reports. The IPCC report from the Working Group 1 was published a few months ago, and it's 3,900 pages long. And I mean, this needs to be simplified. This needs to be made accessible to everyone, to absolutely everyone. Everyone, the outdoor enthusiasts, the ones that are absolutely not outdoor enthusiasts. And of course, Protector Winters has a huge following, has a platform, has is an amazing team of people who are so passionate about their environment, and they want to learn more. They really want to learn more about this. So we can definitely help with that. I think the second thing that is absolutely crucial is to give solutions, right? And this is what you guys are doing, very simple solutions. I mean, I was a part of the Diverse the Dust, the Dirt, and I definitely sent a lot of messages around. You are also simplifying these solutions, making them accessible to everyone. And I think it's crucial to show some cards that people can easily use at their own level. No matter what our background is, no matter how old we are, where we come from, we can definitely all work on these solutions. And then the last thing I think I would really push you to continue is to continue make people understand that it is not too late. It is absolutely not too late to act. Of course, we have pumped in enough CO2 in the atmosphere to kind of lock the way our climate is going to evolve for the next couple of decades. We know that until 2040, there is very little we can do to influence these next 2 decades. But what we do today will have a huge impact on what's happening after that, after 2040, and to make sure that people really understand that the actions we do today, we might not see the impact right away, but it's definitely coming. And this is where also, we would love to help Protect Our Winters continue sharing these very important messages. So I'm sure, and I'm looking at the people in the room here, we have these incredible scientists, incredible climatologists, glaciologists around, and I hope that you can take their their numbers, their emails, because the more we collaborate, us, the scientific community, with you guys, the more we can make a difference. And I'm all for it. I'm all behind Protect Our Winters. And if you need any help from the scientific community, also, the other way around, we would love to be there for you guys. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I think something that I say quite often is that activism is only as accessible as we make it. And if the science is so inaccessible, then how can we make that accessible as possible? And again, through that Protect Our Winters mission. So thank you so much for just kind of showing us support, because we're 100% want to make that activism as accessible as possible so people can take action. And I wanted to maybe just kind of go to you, Leslie, maybe for the final question. And this is a bit of a curveball, but but yeah, Leslie loves a curveball, so we've known each other long enough now that I know I can do this. But as a Scottish person standing in Glasgow right now, in in our community, what do you think the Scottish, or what I'm going to call the unique Scottish perspective, can bring to this universal problem? And I don't know, I'm just quite interested to unpack that with you, because I think it's important while we're here in Glasgow as well to understand that.
Good question, Lauren. Good question. Where do I start? So, as you know, I very often come up with this analogy. I'm really lucky. I've traveled the world to lots of snowy places. I had, I competed from, first of all, as an alpine ski racer and then as a snowboarder. And I started competing in 1991 and I competed until 2010. I had a very long career. And then I coached, and now I'm still involved coaching the coaches. I've been to a lot of snowy places in the world. And one thing, I've also been really lucky to have practiced yoga the whole time, really into meditation. And back in the day, before mindfulness was trendy, I was a weirdo. now I'm kind of cool. One of my takeaways is that you can tune into the landscapes that you're in, and the landscapes that you're in can tell you something about how to be when you're there. And I know that sounds quite hippie, but actually, the more I'm looking into it, it's becoming more scientific. Um, and in Scotland, the weather changes really quickly. You grow up skiing in Scotland, one minute it's blue, beautiful blue sky, the next minute you've got ice crystals like needles smacking you in the face, and you can hardly stand up. And then all of a sudden it's raining, and then it's sunny again. And that was our experience growing up on the mountains as children. And even away from the mountains, you are used to packing for all weathers and any day if you live in Scotland. You take everything with you at all times, and you get to know that the weather cycles happen within yourself as well. And a simple analogy for that is the sun comes out, you do something fun, you have a great time with your friends, you enjoy it, and then the weather changes and you go into yourself, inside yourself. You have an external experience and then you have the reflection, you have the internal experience. And you'll often find that that's a character trait with Scottish people. They're exuberant and they're a bit wacky and they're wild and they're up for a mission, and then they're quiet and introspective. Um, Sometimes to a fault. That's a caricature in Scottish, um, I guess, mythology or anthropology as well. Um, so we have a word in Scotland, the word's gallus. And if somebody's getting a bit gallus, they're getting a bit carried away with themselves. They're in the exuberant phase. They're being, making the most of all opportunities externally that present to themselves. but you always know there's going to be an introspection there. And often with the introspection, with the storm, there is a struggle. And it's through the struggle that you learn. You learn from the cycles of weather. And that, going back to how did I pick up on this? As I traveled the world, if I ever went to climates or mountains that were near the ocean and they had a more um, maritime kind of weather pattern, I started to feel at home. Like Vancouver, I feel at home. It rains a lot. There's a changing weather cycle, but I get the introspection and struggle parts. And as an athlete, you also go through these cycles of learning and then frustration and struggle, especially if you have injuries and you're recovering from the injury in a process, as well as the word gallus, which is a modern Scottish word. We also have a long history of describing that thing, if you like, that way of being in our mythology. And one really lovely story is that the mother of all gods and goddesses in Scottish Gaelic culture, the Gaelic word is Kayak, and the anglicised version is Beira, Queen of Winter, but she's the mother of all gods and goddesses. And she made the land by dropping boulders out of her apron, or pinny in Scots, big pinny, and smacking them with a big hammer to create the valleys, the glens, and the lochs. And the Kaya comes at the autumn equinox and she brings storms to the land. She blankets the land in white so people have to go inside. And she's the goddess of transformational change. And she's, similar to other destructive type energies in many indigenous myths. Kali, for example, some people say they have the same word root, although that's controversial for some people. However, the point is that the kayak acknowledges the need for reflection, for introspection, for struggle before change happens, for winter before spring. And if we lose that, if we lose the winter before spring, we lose the reflection, we lose the chance to evolve, which is something quite different than talking about it from the experiential snow sports space. It's something way more spiritual, for want of a better word. But I think there's an important lesson in there, and it's a very Scottish lesson.
Uh, Amazing, Leslie. I knew you'd be able to answer that curveball. And I think, transformational change is something that we are all here to achieve over the next 12 days. And so with that, I think that's a nice point to just sort of end on. And I'd really like to thank Leslie. I did tell you she was a bit of a pioneer in the Scottish space, and Heidi, and thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.
I just have one last question for Lauren. Where can we follow the activities of Protect Our Winters? How do we follow the solutions, the education? How can we find out more about Protect Our Winters UK?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So if you're on Twitter, it's UK_protect. If you're on Instagram, at Protect Our Winters UK, and our website is www.protectourwinters.uk. And you'll be able to see the policy that we're working on at the minute around trying to get an end date for extraction, and especially new exploration in the North Sea, specifically around the Campbell oil field. You'll also be able to see the divestment work that I've just been talking about with Divest the Dirt. So please share, subscribe to our newsletter, speak to your friends about us, because every connection we make is so powerful, especially for a small NGO like ourselves. We also have Protect Our Winters Europe. There's 11 European chapters. So if you want to follow a European chapter, please just Google Protect Our Winters Europe and they'll come up. Thank you.